Hi guys, and welcome back to Mindset Learn Extra. It is Matt's Lit and we are having an awesome time. We've got Peter and he's going to have those jokes coming fast and furiously. Now he's looking stressed. Hey,
I am, man.
I hope you've got some jokes for us this afternoon. But guys, on a serious note, please make sure that you post your questions on facebook.com/learn extra. Also chat to us on Twitter. We want to hear from you. We want to see where you're struggling. Ask the questions now and not after the exams. I think I keep saying that. And especially moving into prelims now. Guys, mindsetters, grade 12s, I hope that you are watching with the grade 11s too. Right?
Absolutely. Remember, this program is for grade 11s, but as we always say, grade 12s, part of your curriculum is also that grade 11 work, and it's good to go through some of this. In fact, you might see similar sort of questions in your exam. How great wouldn't that be if at the end of your matric year, you suddenly see a question similar to this and think, oh, wow, we saw something along those lines. There's no better feeling than getting a question paper, seeing a question, thinking, I know how to do this. It's fantastic. Shame, our poor producer never had that feeling. It was always, I didn't learn this. You know, shame. I know, it's quite sad. All right, folks, let's move on. So we got to a question now where we were looking at the cost of making bread. Okay, so to paint the picture then, we have this little committee. We have Megan and her group of helpers, and they're making bread in order to sell it to raise funds. And what they said was this, that every loaf of bread, when they go out and buy all the ingredients, each loaf of bread costs them around about R3.50 to make. However, there's an additional cost. And the additional cost was that R400 that they've got to pay to the school every week just for using their lights, their water, and their facilities. Okay? Now, we want to work out how much money are they bringing in. Okay? So let's have a look at this question. Now, the table 2 is the weekly income received from selling bread. Determine the values of C and D in table 2. Now, let's have a look at it. The number of loaves of bread. When they make no bread, guys, it's quite obvious. You make no money, okay? If I go out and stand at a shop, all right, or stand on a corner and I'm now selling a product, right? And I say, here it is. It's nothing. Okay, I'm going to come home at the end of the day and say, I made nothing. And I couldn't expect anything else. So unless I have a product and I'm actually selling some of those products, I'm not going to bring any money in. And that's just common sense, isn't it? Okay. Well, what happens now if we make 40 loaves of bread and we sell 40 loaves of bread? Well, do you remember that each loaf of bread, we're going to sell it for R6? Now, R6 times 40 loaves of bread is quite simple. We take out our calculator, and all we do with our calculator is we say, right, 6 times 40, so 6 times 40 gives me a total of R240. So we're selling 40 loaves of bread, and we're making R240. Likewise, if we sell 150 loaves of bread, we're going to make R900. Why? Because 150 times 6 is 900. And likewise here, if we sell 250 loaves of bread, 250 times 6, 1,500 Rand. Okay. Again, folk, let's look at that table behind me. There are 2 values missing. Hey? There's a value C missing and a value D. And I bet the question is going to say, what's the value of C and what's the value of D? And when we look at the question, it says, determine the values of C and D. All right. When you get a table in the exam and there's a missing value, know this, you're going to have to find that value. All right. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it missing. All right. They would have just given you the values. But they put a little letter in, and they're saying, now calculate those values. Well, the first value, C, is quite simple. Because I know that the cost of a loaf of bread, or the income rather, not the cost, the income is going to equal R6 times the number of loaves of bread that I sell. And I'm just putting L because I don't want to write the number of loaves of bread that I sell. Otherwise, this program's going to be extended for another half an hour. Okay, so we're just putting L. In fact, the reason the time I've taken to explain why I've put L instead of written. I could have
You
written
could
the
have just
number of
written it
loaves of
just
bread and it would have been a lot quicker, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Okay. All
But
right, so next time I'll just write the number of loaves instead of writing L and explaining why. Let's
Well, I
move on.
heard that you just went on vacation, Peter.
I did, hey?
Okay, did you have fun?
I had a wonderful time.
Did you have fun?
Absolutely.
Because we were wondering, like, where do maths teachers go on vacation? I just Googled it.
Yeah?
Do you know where they go?
Where?
To Times Square.
Times Square. Okay.
Oh, come on, I
Oh, no,
tried.
good joke. Sorry, very good
Mine
joke.
said is, please let me know if you thought that my joke was funny, because I thought it was pretty good. And if you didn't think it was funny, please send me another one. There you go.
Folk, on a serious note, of course it's got nothing to do with this question we're doing. On a serious note, this is quite sad. I was asking Indiana earlier, and I said to her, what is 6 times 7? Indiana, what is it?
What is 6 times 7?
Yeah?
6, 12, 18, 24,
42.
42.
Okay, so she said 42. It took her a
You just
while
gotta-
to get there, as you could hear. But she eventually said 42. Then I said to her, okay, well, what is 7 times 6? And without any hesitation, she said, easy, it must be 24. Okay. It's sad, hey? But anyway, let's get back to our question,
Yeah,
because
He
we're
likes
all
to
about
make
maths
fun
lit
of
now,
me.
and we don't want to bring out the shame in other
The
people.
shame card.
The shame card. All right, so back to our question. So our income that we're going to get in is based on 6 rand times the number of loaves of bread that I actually sell. Now, if you look at my table, it's now saying, how much money am I bringing in if I sell 120 loaves of bread? Well, it's quite simple, isn't it? It's 6 rand times 120 loaves of bread. And so we are going to say with our calculator, 6 times 120 equals 720 rand. So it's going to be 720 rand that we actually bring in from selling 120 loaves of bread. I just want to point something out, because this is important to remember. Income is not the same as expense. Sorry, it's not the same as profit. Okay? The money you're bringing in is great, but remember, we got to pay some money out. We got to pay money to the school, and we got to pay money for the ingredients. Once we've paid all that, the income that we've got is going to be a lot less than we got left over. And the money we got left over is what I call my profit. And a lot of students get that whole concept mixed up. A lot of students feel, sure, we've made 720 rand. Because we made 720 rand, that's fantastic. We got 720 rand, let's go spend it. But that's not the case. Because before we even spend any of our money, we've got to take 400 rand to the school, plus we've got to pay for the ingredients of those 120 loaves that we actually made. Okay? But we'll come back to that. Right, now, my next one, D, says this. If I bring in 960 rand, how many loaves of bread have I actually sold? Let's go back to the formula. Okay? 960. So we've got income equals 6 rand times the number of loaves of bread. We are saying we want to know if I bring in 960 rand. So if my income is 960 rand, how many loaves of bread do I have? Well, if every loaf cost me 6 rand, or I'm bringing in 6 rand, then I can say, well, that's quite simple. It's going to be 960 rand divided by 6. So we got 960 rand divided by 6, and we've sold 160 loaves of bread. Okay, so let's go back here and fill it in. This is 160 loaves, and this was 720 rand. Do you remember when we worked on our last table? I said, let's see if it kind of makes any sense to us. So 120 is between 40 and 150, and 720 is between 240 and 900. That's logical. 960 is between 900 and 15, and 160 is between 150 and 250. Again, logical. We're making sense of some of our answers there. Okay, let's move on. Next question. Right, now it says this. We are now going to draw a graph. So it says use the values from table 1 and table 2 to draw two straight line graphs on the same grid. Wait, the person who set this paper is a very good friend of yours, must be a good friend of yours, because they didn't just say draw a graph, they said draw straight line graph. Guys, that means if my graph is going to work out to something weird and wonderful like that, I've made a mistake. Why? Because my examiner or the person who set the test said, hey boy, it's going to be a straight line graph. Or, hey girl, it's going to be a straight line graph. So you know you've got to draw two straight lines. So let's get rid of these horrible curves, shall we? There we go. Okay, fantastic. Let's move on. Let's read the rest of the question. So we're going to draw two straight lines on the same grid. Now, showing the cost per week of making bread and the income per week from selling the bread. Right, so here are our two tables. And what we're now going to do is going to try and draw that up here. Now, folks, what we're going to do is this, and I'm glad they've given this to us. Normally, an examiner would give you a set of axes and actually label the axes, okay? In this case, we haven't been given that. And you know what? Nowhere does it state in your curriculum that the examiner has to give you all the labels. So an examiner could give you something like this and say, there it is, a blank grid, you draw the graph. Well, the first thing you've got to do now is you've got to kind of work out how, first of all, what goes on my vertical axis, what goes on my horizontal axis. That's question number one. Question number two, what does each one of these little blocks represent? How much money do they represent? Or how many loaves of bread do they represent? So we've got to work that out. Okay. Now, what I always say to my students is this. First of all, we are going to label my horizontal, or rather my vertical, money. Generally, that's the thumb rule. Okay? So we're going to say this is my money in rands. Oops. Let's try that again. Now, why am I saying in rands? Do I have to say in rands? No, I don't. No one says I have to. Okay? But if I don't, when I put my numbers on the axes, I've got to actually put an R in front of it to show that it's 10 Rand or 20 Rand or 30 Rand or 40 Rand. But if I write in my axes money in rands, then I don't have to. Then I can just put numbers. It saves me writing R, 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 R the whole time. In the same way, on my vertical or my horizontal axis, I'm going to write here the number of loaves. Okay? Now, by doing that straight away, I don't have to say 1 loaf, 2 loaves, 3 loaves, 4 loaves, 5 loaves, 6 loaves there. I can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got that? Right. Now, how many blocks do I have going up? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 blocks going up. And yet, the highest amount of money I have is here. 1,800, 1,450, 1,800 is my highest. So I have to fit 1,800 Rand in 13 blocks. So how much should each block be worth? Well, let's have a look at that. So I'm going to say, oopsie, here we go. 1,800 Rand has got to fit into 13 blocks. Means each block has got to be 138 Rand and 46 cents. Now, folks, that is just an ugly, ugly, ugly number. And I don't like that. So, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say let every block represent 200 Rand. Okay? Because then it's really going to fit in nicely. And then I know halfway through a block is 100 rand, right? And a whole block is 200 rand. A quarter of a block will be 50 rand. 3/4 of a block will be 150 rand. I'm glad I look at Indiana for help
Confirmation?
and support.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
Peter,
So
yes.
let's do that. So we know. So I've got 0 rand here at the bottom. Let's get a pen, shall we? That always helps. 0 rand at the bottom. Then I've got 200 rand here, 400 rand here, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 rand, 1,600 rand, 1,800 rand, and I have to go as high as 1,800 rand, so I don't really need to go higher. I sometimes say to my students, you know what? You can go one block higher, so make it 2,000 rand. Why? Just because. Okay. Now, my next thing I've got to do is work out how many loaves of bread must be represented by each block going across. Right. So how many blocks do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 blocks. And what's the maximum number of loaves of bread I want to sketch? 300. Okay? So we've got 300 loaves of bread divided by... How many blocks did we have, Indiana? Great. Okay, so let's look.
I'm busy
1, 2, 3, 4,
talking here.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 blocks.
15 blocks.
Thank you. Divided by 15, and we get 20. So each block could represent 20 loaves of bread. Okay? When I look at my table, I can see it's actually, yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. Can we do that? Let's do that. So I've got 20 loaves. Let's get a pen first of all. 20 loaves of bread, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200, 220, 240, 260, 280, and 300. Okay. Now remember I said this. I said there's nothing to stop an examiner from giving you a blank grid and making you do all this by yourself. Okay. The problem with that is this, it takes a lot of time to do that. And that's why examiners, especially in matric, tend, they don't have to, let me stress this, they don't have to, but for the sake of time, they tend to give you these figures in your set of axes as well, so you don't have to calculate it. Okay? However, I like to give this to my class in a nice grade 11 test. Love doing it. Giving them a blank grid and say, right, you work out the set of axes yourself now. Right? Because then it's showing true and complete understanding. And if they can do that, if they can get a blank set of axes, draw the scale themselves, and draw the graphs correctly, then how easy will it be at the end of matric if they get given a set of axes with all the labels, with all the numbers, and all they got to do is draw the line? How fantastic. Okay. But guys, again, I want to stress this. Examiners can give you a blank grid. Okay? They don't have to put in the figures. They normally put in the figures just because of time. Right. Now we've got to draw in our graph. Now, the first thing we've got to do is this. We know that the cost. So let's make cost pink, shall we? Why? Because, in fact, I might even draw it as a straight line. We're going to make it yellow. All right. So cost is going to be yellow. Now, when I sell no bread, it's going to cost me 400 rand. So no loaves of bread is going to cost me 400 rand. There it is there. Okay? I know I've got a straight line. So here's a little hint. I should be able to find the cost of nothing and the cost of 300 and join those two dots. with a straight line, and that line should cover every dot along my set of axes. Okay, and that's what we're going to do after the break.
Okay, let's do that. Let's go to a break, guys. Give yourself a little bit of a stretch. Go and get some water. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. And post those questions on the page. If there's anything that Peter has been going over that you don't understand, let's clear it up now. We'll be taking your questions after the break. Get posting. See you now.